My aunt Brooklyn had a meltdown at my sister's wedding, and favoritism in our family came crashing down in front of everyone. So, this happened last month, and honestly, I'm still trying to process it. My aunt Brooklyn 51 F'd what I can only describe as a full-blown mental health crisis at my sister's wedding. To back up a bit, my mom 46 and Brooklyn are sisters. Growing up, there was always favoritism in our family, but it ran deep. My grandparents, especially my grandma, openly favoured my mom. Mom got the praise, the attention, the financial help, the perfect daughter label. Brooklyn was basically the afterthought. She struggled in school, later struggled with relationships, and eventually with her mental health. And while everyone saw it, nobody really supported her. Fast forward to my sister Emma's wedding. Emma 24F is the golden child, just like my mom was. She had the perfect dress, a huge ceremony at this fancy vineyard outside of town, and literally the entire extended family was there. I could already feel tension in the air when I saw Brooklyn walk in. She looked different. Like she hadn't been sleeping, hair not done the way she usually tries, kind of glossy-eyed. I went over to hug her. "Hey, Aunt Brooklyn, I'm so glad you came," I said. She forced a smile. "Of course, sweetheart, I wouldn't miss it." But something was off. During the ceremony, everything was going smoothly. Emma walked down the aisle, people were crying happy tears, vows were exchanged. But when the officiant asked if anyone objected, there was this weird, heavy silence. And then out of nowhere Brooklyn stood up. "I object," she said, her voice shaky but loud enough to echo. Everyone gasped. The officiant froze. Emma's face went pale. My mom hissed, "Brooklyn, sit down right now." But Brooklyn didn't. Instead, she started rambling about how unfair everything had always been. She wasn't even talking about the marriage. She was talking about our family. "You always loved her more," she shouted, pointing at my mom. "And now you all celebrate her daughter like she's some kind of princess, while I've been left behind. Forgotten. Do you have any idea what that does to someone?" People were stunned. The groom's family looked mortified. Emma was on the verge of tears, whispering to Mom, "Do something." My grandma tried to stand up to calm Brooklyn, but Brooklyn completely broke down. She was crying, shaking, saying things like, "I don't matter, I never mattered, maybe it would have been better if I wasn't even here." At that point, a couple of my uncles moved to Jeddy to take her outside, but she fought them off, screaming, "You don't get to silence me, not anymore." The entire ceremony was basically ruined. Emma was crying, the groom looked lost, and my mom looked like she wanted the air to swallow her whole. I just sat there frozen, watching my aunt unravel in front of 150 wedding guests. And here's the thing I felt for her. Because as awful as the timing was, everything she said wasn't wrong. The vineyard staff quickly escorted guests out to the cocktail area while the chaos unfolded inside. The ceremony had just completely collapsed. Emma was sobbing in the bridal suite, and my mom stormed outside to handle Brooklyn. I slipped out after her because something in my gut told me it wasn't going to go well. Outside, near the parking lot, my mom was standing there, red-faced, yelling in a hushed but venomous tone. "Do you realise what you've done? You embarrassed me. You embarrassed Emma. You ruined her wedding." Brooklyn was leaning against a stone wall, mascara smeared, her hands trembling. She looked so small in that moment. "You don't get it, do you?" she whispered. "You never did. All I ever wanted was to matter as much as you, just once." "Brooklyn, this isn't about you." My mom snapped back. "This is Emma's day, not your pity party." That's when Brooklyn broke down further. She started pacing, pulling at her hair. "Of course it's about Emma. It's always about Emma, just like it's always been about you, and I'm just," her voice cracked, "the shadow you keep hidden." I finally stepped in. "Mom, stop. Can't you see she's not okay?" My mom turned on me. "Not now. You have no idea how many times we've been through this with her. She wants attention. She always has, and she picked the worst moment possible." Brooklyn suddenly screamed, startling all of us, because it's the only time anyone would listen. There was this heavy silence. Even my mom froze. A couple of cousins who had followed out stood there awkwardly, pretending not to eavesdrop, but clearly shaken. Brooklyn collapsed onto the ground, sobbing. "I'm so tired," she said. "I don't sleep, I don't eat, and nobody cares. I come here today, and all I see is the same thing I've seen my whole life for being celebrated. Me being nothing." I knelt down next to her. "I care," I said quietly. She looked at me with these broken eyes, like she didn't believe it. "No you don't. You'll forget as soon as this circus moves on." At this point, my Uncle James, my mom, and Brooklyn's brother showed up. He's usually the peacekeeper in the family. He crouched beside her, speaking softly. "Brooke, we do care. We should have done better, but right now, we just need to get you somewhere safe, okay?" Brooklyn shook her head violently. "No hospitals, no more pills. They don't fix the hole, nothing fixes it." Her voice cracked on that last sentence, and I swear I saw even James's eyes water. Meanwhile, the guests were whispering and gossiping. The groom's parents looked ready to pull the plug on the reception. My grandma, who has always been part of the problem, finally shuffled over and muttered, "Brooklyn, you're making a fool of yourself, get up." That was it. Brooklyn's face hardened. She stood up, wiped her eyes, and said, "You still don't get it, you never will." Then she stormed off toward the vineyard's exit. We all just stood there, frozen, watching her leave. And Emma's wedding day? Completely shattered. After Brooklyn stormed out, the atmosphere was radioactive. The vineyard staff kept bringing out trays of champagne like they were trying to distract everyone, but you could feel it, this weird, suffocating tension. Emma was still in the bridal suite, makeup streaked from crying. When I went to check on her, she looked at me like I was the one who caused the whole thing. "Why didn't anyone stop her?" she snapped. "Why didn't you do something?" "What could I have done, them?" She was breaking down. I said softly. "I don't care," she cried. "This was supposed to be my day. She took everything from me. Everything." The groom, Daniel, was sitting in the corner looking like he regretted the marriage already. He mumbled, "Babe, maybe we should just let it go and move on." "Move on?" Emma shrieked. "Do you realise how humiliating that was? Everyone's going to remember that instead of our vows." Meanwhile, out in the main hall, my mom was on damage control duty. I overheard her talking to the groom's parents. "I promise you, this isn't normal, Brooklyn, she has issues. We're so sorry you had to see that." The groom's mom raised her brows and said flatly, "It's not really about us, is it? It's about your daughter's wedding being ruined." My mom's face tightened. She plastered on a smile, but you could tell she was dying inside. Then came the whispers. Cousins, aunts, distant relatives, everyone was buzzing. I heard one of them say, "Honestly, I don't blame Brooklyn. That family always did treat her like dirt." Another chimed in, yeah, but not a wedding, she could have waited. By the time the reception started, the energy was off. The DJ tried to hype everyone with upbeat music, but it felt forced. Emma refused to leave the bridal suite for over an hour. When she finally came out, she was stiff, fake smiling for the photos, gripping Daniel's arm like a lifeline. During dinner, my grandma made a toast. She stood up, tapped her glass, and said, "Let's remember what this day is truly about, celebrating Emma and Daniel. We wouldn't let anyone ruin that." It was so pointed, so passive-aggressive, that the whole room went quiet. Even Daniel winced. And then Emma exploded. She slammed her fork down and blurted out loud enough for half the tables to hear. "She already did ruin it, Grandma. She ruined everything, and you're the reason she's like that in the first place." The entire hall went dead silent. My grandma's mouth dropped open. My mom tried to shush Emma, whispering, "Not here, not now." But Emma stood up shaking. "You always pit her against you, Mum. You let Grandma make her feel worthless, and then you wonder why she snaps. Well, congratulations, now my wedding's a disaster because you couldn't take care of your own sister." The groom's family looked horrified. Some of our cousins nodded like Anna had just said what they'd all been thinking. That's when my mom completely lost it. She slammed her hand on the table, her voice sharp. "Enough, we are not airing family drama in front of everyone." But it was too late. The damage was done. By the time Brooklyn returned about an hour later, things had escalated even more. She didn't come quietly. She barged back into the reception hall, hair disheveled, eyes wild, looking like she hadn't slept for evening days. The room went silent again. Everyone sensed this wasn't going to end quietly. Brooklyn's voice cut through the murmurs. "You think leaving fixes anything? You think pretending I don't exist will erase 51 years of being ignored?" My mom sprang up. "Brooklyn, not now, sit down before you make things worse." But Brooklyn didn't sit. Instead, she turned to the entire family, pointing at my mom and grandma. "You all have favourites. You've always had favourites, Anna, Daniel. You're all perfect in their eyes while I'm invisible. I've tried to be happy for you, really. I have, but I can't not anymore." Emma's face twisted in anger and frustration. She stomped toward Brooklyn. "You think this is about you? You ruined my wedding. Brooklyn, this was supposed to be my happiest day, and you destroyed it." Brooklyn snapped back, voice shaking. "You think I care about your happiness? You think I can celebrate when I've spent my whole life invisible, overlooked, and dismissed? You have everything I never did." My Uncle James jumped between them. "Enough, stop yelling," he pleaded. "We need calm, or this is going to get physical." But it didn't. Instead, Brooklyn fell to her knees in the middle of the hall, sobbing uncontrollably, banging her fists against the floor. I'm so tired of being nothing. I can't do this anymore." Kess whispered. Some tried to comfort her, others slowly backed away. My grandma hovered nearby, fuming. "Brooklyn, you're making a scene. Get up this instant." Brooklyn's eyes locked on her. "You never cared. You never did," she screamed, her voice raw and echoing across the hall. At this point, Emma broke down completely. She collapsed into Daniel's arms, shaking, sobbing, screaming. Why does she always have to ruin everything? James knelt beside Brooklyn again. "Brooke, listen to me. You're safe. You're not alone. Let's step outside and calm down." Brooklyn resisted, but after several tense minutes, James and I managed to help her up and guide her outside. The tension in the hall was palpable. The DJ stopped the music, half the guests whispered frantically, and the mood of the entire wedding had shifted into shock and awkwardness. Once outside, Brooklyn slumped against the stone wall again. I sat next to her. "Brooke, I know this hurts. I know they hurt you, but lashing out like that, you scared everyone. We can help, though. We can try." She shook her head slowly. "No one understands. Not really. Maybe. I don't even want to be understood." And then she cried harder, shaking in a way that broke my heart. Even though the wedding was ruined, I couldn't help but feel empathy. She wasn't just acting out. This was years of neglect, favoritism, and mental health struggles exploding all at once. It was the most intense, emotional, and chaotic family confrontation I have ever witnessed. After Brooklyn was escorted out to the garden area behind the vineyard, the remaining family gathered in a small circle to try and salvage what was left of the evening. My mom was pacing, muttering under her breath, while my grandma huffed, arms crossed, pretending nothing had happened. "I can't believe she did this, at my daughter's wedding," my mom whispered, mostly to herself. James shook his head. "She's not thinking rationally, you know that. We need to calm her down, not yell at her." Emma, still in her gown, stood with her arms crossed, face red and tear-streaked. "I don't want calm. She ruined my day. She humiliated me. This isn't about rationality, it's about consequences." I could see Brooklyn sitting on a stone bench, head in her hands, quietly sobbing. Her breathing was uneven, almost like she was trying to pull herself back from a full mental collapse. I walked over, crouched down beside her. "Brooke, it's okay. I know it's messy, but you need to tell someone how you feel. You can't keep all this bottled up." She sniffled, lifting her face. "You really think anyone would care if I just disappeared? Or worse?" Her voice was so fragile, I had to fight back tears myself. "Brooklyn, don't talk like that," I said firmly. "You matter. You've always mattered. Even if Mom and Grandma didn't show it, I do. James does. We care." She stared at me, incredulous, then shook her head. "I don't think you really know. I've carried this weight forever. You can't fix 51 years in one night." James walked up and knelt beside her. "No, we can't fix it in a night, but we can start. We can help you get the support you need, and right now, I just want you safe." Brooklyn hesitated, then leaned back against him. I don't want to be a burden anymore. I don't want to ruin anyone's happiness." I tried to hold it together, but I can't. "You're not a burden, Brooklyn," I said. "You're our family, and yeah, it got messy tonight, but we're here for you. We'll help you figure it out together." For a long moment, she stayed silent. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. Tears kept falling, but the tension in her body eased slightly. Meanwhile, inside, the reception was limping along. Some guests had left, others whispered about what happened. My mom and grandma were still trying to salvage the night, but the smiles were forced, the laughter hollow. Even though the ceremony had been a disaster, there was this strange sense of release in the air. The confrontation had finally forced the family to face the favoritism and neglect that had been swept under the rug for decades. Brooklyn stayed outside for the remainder of the night, quietly processing. She wasn't fixed and nothing could undo what happened, but at least for the first time in years, she was being heard, acknowledged, and supported. As I watched her sit there, I realized this wedding, as chaotic and heartbreaking as it had been, might have been the beginning of something she desperately needed: recognition, understanding, and maybe, just maybe, healing. By the time the reception was winding down, the vineyard was quieter, the sun dipping low behind the hills. Inside, the music was soft, half-hearted conversation filling the gaps where laughter should have been. Emma and Daniel had retreated to a corner, holding hands, but still visibly shaken. Brooklyn remained outside, sitting on a stone bench, looking out over the vineyard. I walked over, carrying a small bottle of water and a hand towel. "Here," I said quietly. "You should drink something. You've been crying for hours." She took it reluctantly, her hands trembling. "Thanks," she muttered. Then she leaned back, staring up at the sky. I don't know what's worse, the yelling, or the way everyone just stared, like they were waiting for me to explode. "You did explode," I said gently. "But sometimes explosions are necessary. People need to see what's been hidden." Brooklyn laughed bitterly. "Necessary, huh? That sounds so clean. It was messy, humiliating, embarrassing, and I feel exposed, naked in front of everyone." "I get that," I said. "But maybe now they'll actually listen. Maybe now they'll see you, not just the shadow everyone's used to ignoring." She was quiet for a long moment, then whispered, "I don't know if I can forgive them, or myself." "Forgiveness takes time," I said. "You don't have to do it tonight. Just don't shut yourself away either. You need people who care to help you." After a pause, she looked at me, her eyes softening. "I'm scared, I'm scared they'll go back to ignoring me, pretending this never happened." "I know," I said. "But some of us won't. I won't, James won't, and maybe this is the first step for them too. They'll have to face the truth eventually." Inside, my mum finally approached, hesitantly, glancing around to see if anyone was watching. She stopped a few feet away and spoke softly. "Brooklyn, I didn't realize I should have. I'm sorry." Brooklyn studied her, unsure. Then she let out a long, shaky breath. It's not just you, it's Grandma, it's the whole family system, but I needed them to see me tonight, and they did. I'm tired." My mom nodded, tears glinting in her eyes. "I know, I'll do better, we'll do better." Shane stepped closer and placed a reassuring hand on Brooklyn's shoulder. "Let's get you home, we can talk more there, you don't have to face this alone anymore." Brooklyn finally stood, a little unsteady but calmer. She nodded at me. "Thank you for not giving up on me." As we slowly made our way to the car, I realized that the wedding, though a disaster, had forced a reckoning. Brooklyn had finally voiced decades of pain, the family had been confronted with their favoritism, and while the path forward was uncertain, there was at least a chance for healing. That night, the vineyard lights twinkled in the distance, the laughter and music from the reception faint behind us. Brooklyn didn't look defeated anymore, just exhausted and cautiously, maybe hopeful. The next morning, things were quieter. Emma was nursing a headache from the previous night's drama, Daniel was still confused, and most of the extended family had trickled back home. Brooklyn stayed at my place for a few days afterward, needing a safe space to process everything that had happened. Over coffee in the kitchen, Brooklyn admitted, "I've carried all of this for so long, all the favoritism, all the neglect, it's like it just piled up, and last night I lost it." Her voice was soft but steady now, no longer the raw panic from the wedding. I nodded. "I know, and it makes sense. You were pushed to the edge, but you spoke your truth, that matters." She sighed, staring out the window. "I just hope people understand now. I hope Mom, Grandma, they actually see me, not just the mess I made." A few days later, my mom called Brooklyn. She left a shaky voicemail, apologizing again, acknowledging how her favoritism had hurt Brooklyn, and expressing a willingness to support her mental health. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. James also arranged for Brooklyn to meet with a therapist she trusted. Brooklyn was hesitant at first, afraid of being fixed or silenced, but eventually agreed. It wasn't a magical solution, she still had scars, still had moments of anger and sadness, but she had begun talking, confronting, and slowly healing. Emma, meanwhile, reflected on the wedding's chaos. She apologized to Brooklyn privately, recognizing that while her special day was disrupted, Brooklyn's pain was real and years in the making. They didn't hug or resolve everything instantly, but a tentative truce formed. At the next family gathering, Brooklyn sat at the table more comfortably than anyone had seen in years. She laughed at small jokes, offered opinions, and occasionally caught my mom's eye, sometimes met with a nod, sometimes with guilt, but always acknowledgement. It was clear that the road ahead would be long, and that not all wounds would close quickly. But for the first time in decades, Brooklyn wasn't invisible. She had been heard, her pain validated, and the family had to reckon with their patterns. One evening, I asked Brooklyn how she felt about the wedding now, months later. She shrugged lightly. "Awful, embarrassing, but also necessary. I don't regret speaking up. Maybe it scared people, maybe it hurt them, but it was the only way to make them see me." And that, I realized, was Brooklyn in a nutshell. Messy, emotional, deeply human, and finally, taking up space in a family that had long ignored her. The wedding may have been a disaster, but it became a turning point, a catalyst for honesty, empathy, and, slowly, healing. Brooklyn's breakdown had shaken the entire family to its core, but from that chaos, a chance for reconciliation and understanding began to emerge. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was real, and for Brooklyn, that made all the difference.